All right, let's jump right into these letter forms, starting with our first family, which is I, U, and W. And you should be able to see that there are some similarities between these letters. Just in terms of size and height, they both, or all three of them, just come up to the X height here. See that with the I, the U, and the W. Now the I does have a dot that goes above the X height, but the main body of the letter just goes up to the X height. And they all feature this I shape within them, okay? And we'll see this I shape over and over again throughout the alphabet. But it's really apparent in these three letters. You can see the I here, and then you should be able to see it here again, and then also here in the U. So really 2 times in the U, kind of overlapping each other. And then also in the W as well. You'll see it here in this first part of the W, and then kind of a modified version of the I in the second part of the W, but we'll talk about that when we get to the W. But let's take a quicker look at this shape of this I and how it works and why it looks the way it does, okay? So let me draw a bigger version of this I first so we can really break it down. So I'm gonna do the entry stroke in, come down on our main slant, have a tight turn at the bottom, and then have an exit stroke out. All right, so this is just a rough enlargement of this letter. I'll put the dot up here. That's where it would go, just about. So this is a bigger version. So basically for this bigger version, we're pretending that our baseline is the same, but now this top line is our X height, okay? And that just helps us see it a little better, and we can look at these individual parts. So first we have this entry stroke, which, if you remember our terminology, this is a undercurve, and I can show that by drawing in our connective slant on this letter. So if I just roughly draw in our connective slant, which is about on this angle, just that 30-degree angle, we can see that the entry stroke is an undercurve because it's curving under that main, or that connective slant, okay? And then if we look at this downstroke in the middle, which is gonna be on this slant here, this is on our main slant, all right? And we talked about our main slant, and it comes right down on that main slant, straight down on it. And then we have an exit stroke. We have a tight turn at the bottom. Know how tight that turn is. It's not a big looping turn, not a big rounded turn. This downstroke comes down very close to the baseline and then makes a tight change of direction toward the right to exit the letter. And again, if we draw another line through where that exit turn begins and ends, we get another line on this is our connective slant again. All right, and we can see we have an underturn because it's turning under that connective slant. All right, and it's really these connective slants that determine the width of this letter, okay? If we had a much shallower connective slant or a much steeper connective slant, then we would have a much narrower letter. So let's say we had a connective slant like this, and then we came down on our main slant and then exited on that same connective slant. You can see how changing that connective slant changes the width of the letter. Look at the connective slant now. I also maybe made the main slant a little steeper in this example too. But look at our 2 connective slants on these entry and exit strokes. They're much steeper than the ones over here. And the result is a narrower letter. So hopefully that shows you why the connective slant is so important for maintaining consistent width of our letters or consistent size. And how changing that connective slant changes the width of the letter, all right? So I did one big. Let's just do one at our actual size here. And just to demonstrate how to make this letter again, we start with our entry stroke, which is an undercurve up to the X height. Then we come down on our main slant, tight turn, and make another exit undercurve on that connective slant. And we put our dot of our I right on the main slant, so just follow the back of your eye up, and it goes right between the X height and the TD line, okay? Remember, this is our TD line, and this is our X height. That dot goes right in between the two, all right? So that's how you make the I. Now for the U, I'm not going to go through all that analysis again because it's basically the same letter, just made twice and connected together. So for the U, we do the same entry, come down on the main slant, tight turn at the bottom. We do the same exit, and then we just come down again and then do that exit again. All right, so it's just like making two I's together, and they just, in the middle, they're sharing that exit of the first I and the entry of the second I, and that's how you make a U. Do it one more time. And if you need to stop and rewind this and see it again, feel free to do so, or maybe practice a few on your own while you're seeing this for the first time. That's not a bad idea either. You know, with this U, you obviously have two downstrokes, so you want to keep both of these downstrokes on the same main slant, all right? Having two different ones like this is going to make that U look a little wonky. We want to keep that consistency between those two downstrokes. So you can see how this one's on that angle and this one's on a different angle. So those are the types of things that are going to make your letter look good or not and be consistent or not. All right. And notice with this letter, you know, in all these examples, I'm making sure that I'm starting on the baseline. I'm going up to the X height, and I'm keeping everything within those two lines. All right, we want to have that consistency of size there in addition to the consistency in slant to create this letter. All right, let's go on to the W. So there's a little wrinkle in this W. It's very much like a U, but it has a different ending basically. So I'll just go ahead and make one with this starting entry stroke, come down on my main slant, tight turn at the bottom. I've basically just made an I. I have just made the I form. And then I'm going to do another downstroke, a tight turn, and then I'm going to come up steeper. All right, hope you can see that, and I'll diagram it in a second. And then to exit, I just come down a little bit on this last stroke, and I just do a nice little curved stroke out to the right like that. And I finish on the X height. All right, now I hope you can see here that this first stroke is on our main slant. The second stroke should be on the main slant as well. And then our entry stroke, this is on our connective slant. I'll draw, our second one is on our connective slant, but then this third one is on a different slant. So if I draw a line through here, you can see how that's a much steeper angle. All right. If I draw it, maybe drawing it big would be helpful here as well. I'll go up to the TD line as an example, just to show a bigger letter. Come down on the main slant, exit on our connective slant, come down on the main slant, and then exit on a steeper angle. All right, and what this does is it provides a unique look to this letter, so it doesn't look like a U at all. Well, it looks like one like a little bit, but having this, you can see the space between the top parts of these letters is much narrower, and that's because I'm on this steeper angle here when I make that stroke. All right, hope you can see that. So that's the wrinkle in the W. It's just that little ending part. I'll do another one at regular size here, entry, down, another connective stroke, another underturn as we call it, down on the main slant again, and then coming up steep, and then just finishing with a little flare like that. All right, and that's our exit stroke that can connect into another letter. All right, so that's the I, U, W letters, analysis of those letters, and demonstration on how to execute. Let's look at connecting these letters with each other. So we only have 3 letters to work with, so we don't have any English words that we can make so far, but we can still connect these letters with each other just to demonstrate a little bit about how to connect letters. All right, and we'll start with this very simple I connection, which we've kind of already done with making our U, right? Just going to come down, make another I, come down again, make an I. All right, and I'm going to add my dots right halfway between that TD line and X height. And you have 2 I's together. Now, if you were to for some reason had to connect two I's together, you might want to spread them out a little bit more. And to do that, I'm going to come down, and when I make this connective stroke, I'm going to just pull it to the right further, really to separate these two letters, and then add my dots. Now that separates those I's a little bit more. It makes them look a little bit less like a U, which helps differentiate them. And notice one thing I'm not doing with this I, which a lot of people might do, is I'm not doing this rounded exit turn, okay? When I come down on this main slant, I'm not doing this. All right, that's not the exit we want. For the look of this script, this traditional looking script, we want a nice straight, bring it all the way down to that baseline and then make a tight turn at the bottom, all right? And if you're having problems with this, just keep practicing bringing this further and further down. Or you can even, I'll talk about doing overcorrections. If your natural tendency is to round it out, then what you can do is just bring it all the way down to the baseline and come up. And obviously that's not what we want either, but that's an overcorrection. That's making sure you're bringing that down. Then you can work the curve, the turn into the letter. Instead of having that sharp turn at the bottom, have a nice little tiny curve to that. Because that's right and that's wrong. And that's wrong. All right, let's do another connection. IU, very similar to the last connection we did, but just going from the I, which we'll make first. And then I'll provide some nice space between these two letters and make my U. Coming down with the U. All right, notice I'm hitting the base lines at the bottom, the X height at the top. There's a lot of downstrokes in this letter, so it'd be very easy to recognize if I was off slant on any of these. And I've kept it pretty good here. All right, you can always check your slant just by drawing in these lines. And then I can check my connective slant here. All right, what's the connective slants here? This one's going to be a little shallower because I've added some extra space between these letters. So I'm not too worried about that middle one, but I want to make sure this one and this one are the same, and this exit as well. All right, hopefully you can see how this middle one's a little shallower because I added some extra space between the two letters. All right, that's the IU connection. Now let's look at the double U and the U connection. This one has a little bit of a twist to it, a different type of connection. And I'll just go ahead and demonstrate it. I'll make my W first. Come up a little steeper on this second part of the W. Then I'm going to connect to the U from the top. I'm going to do a nice sweeping stroke out and then do my U. Notice how in cursive, the exit stroke of one letter flows into the entry stroke of the next letter. Everything is connected with these lowercase letters, okay? So whenever you're exiting, you're simultaneously doing an exit stroke and an entry stroke. So this is our connective stroke. That's what we call them. And because they connect one letter to the other. And with that W, it kind of changes the look of the U a little bit because you're entering it from the top instead of where it normally is from the bottom. So anytime you have an exit from the top, it's always going to modify the look of the next letter from the standard look of that letter, what you see in the exemplar. All right, let's just do that one more time. Make my W, and then do that entry or that exit and entry into the U. All right. So that's just a few connections, the I, U, W, and U. Give those some practice. There's more connections you can do, different combinations of these letters. I encourage you to do them all, as many as you can, as much as you have time for, before we go on to the next lesson.